Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode. My name's Rowan Sanderson. I'm the CNO here at Bella and Duke, Chief Nutritional Officer. And this week we are covering how and how much to feed your puppy with the brilliant Dr. Brendan Clark. The Pet Health and Happiness podcast from Bella and Duke, keeping you at the cutting edge of pet nutrition, behavior and health with expert interviews, mythbusters and more to ensure your pet lives a long, happy, healthy life. Dr. Brendan, welcome.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Awesome. So without further ado, Brendan, there seems to be such a large variety of advice, such a broad spectrum on how much you should feed your puppy. It's according to the size of the breed. It varies. Wow. Are we going to shine a torch of light into a dark place on this subject this week?
Hopefully we're going to get a spotlight on there and help you guys just to relax into being able to feed your puppy individually and appropriately. So yeah, we'll go through all of those aspects.
And guys, if you want to actually see this, we're putting together a comprehensive how-to puppy guide on the Bella and Duke website, which is available for free. And if you watch this episode to the end, Brendan is going to take us through his patented puppy body composition guide. So you'll be able to tailor your nutrition to your new puppy perfectly. Right, Brendan, what are the general thumb rules when it comes to feeding your puppy, please?
Okay, well, you've got to remember your puppy is growing. Okay, so you're generally going to have received your puppy at about 8 weeks of age, and that's a case of almost a maximum growth rate for your puppy going through to the sort of 4-5 month period of 16 to 20 weeks. So you've got to expect that your puppy's going to need lots of energy in that time. And that's why it is often that the puppy foods are packaged separately from adult foods, because the guides on them will relate to much higher amounts that you need to feed.
Yep. Okay.
And that's much higher amounts per body weight. So often we're talking 5 to 10% of their body weight in raw food will be fed each day in order to sustain the growth rate that your puppy needs.
Yeah, and that's because they're going through these huge growth spurts. Their brains are developing, which takes a lot of metabolic activity. We need to provide all the nutrients for those healthy bones, joints, articulations, tendons, ligaments, and of course, for all their organs to develop accordingly.
And, you know, a wonderful thing about raw is that all of those nutrients are packed in to pretty much every meal.
Yep.
And that's the brilliant thing. You know, when you're feeding raw, you're not dealing with lots of vegetable matter being shoved in cereal form and causing all sorts of other problems with just energy. With raw, you're getting all of the fats and the muscle and the protein, therefore, that they need for good, healthy growth.
Well, and I'm really glad you brought this up, because I always look at it as putting in nutrients or anti-nutrients. And frankly, with raw, it's all nutrients, which are more bioavailable. We've got clinical research which proves that, which are non-inflammatory and are basically non-anti-nutrients. So you're just giving your puppy the best. Good choice. Right. So, Brendan, so up to 10% of your puppy's body weight per day. So if you've got a 5 kilo puppy, you could be feeding up to 500 grams split across a couple of meals. And that's another good topic to cover. How many meals would you generally split the food into?
So I generally have always gone through just not overloading the puppies, because it's quite a lot of their body weight that you're going to be feeding. And so generally I would start when you receive them at 8 weeks of about 4 meals in the day. which then I decrease at about 12 weeks down to about 3 meals a day. Usually by 16 to 20 weeks, you're on 2 meals a day. And most people generally will stick with that for the lifetime of their dog. However, we've talked in another podcast about the benefits of having a fasting period and, even going down to once daily feeding on occasions, and just mixing up when those feeds are so that it's not just a standard, oh, it's 6 o'clock. They always get their food at 6 o'clock. That's not the essentials of when to feed them. So I would say start young, more frequent, just so that they're getting little bursts into their intestines as they go, and then slowly decrease. So 8 weeks, start with 4 meals a day, 12 weeks reduce to 3 meals a day, 16 to 20 weeks you can reduce to 2 meals a day, and then go on from there.
Perfect. And as to that latter point, we've seen from basically experience and the group, and I know Dr. Barbara Royal's a big advocate of 1 meal a day and changing it up. However, that doesn't always work so well with some of the smaller breeds, does it?
Yeah, and I would certainly say you've got to imagine we're talking a whole range here, from little chihuahuas, 1.5 kilos, up to huge, great Burmese mountain dogs at 90 kilos at the top end, and you've got to sort of adapt to your individual dog, and definitely when they've got small, high metabolisms, because their body surface area means they're going to lose more heat, they're going to need to generate more. You've got to think about they're going to need little bits of food more regularly in order to maintain that. Otherwise, that you will overface them. And some of them can be quite picky with their food as well. They don't want to eat large quantities. Whereas I've seen large dogs that are quite happy to wolf down, 3 days worth of food in one go, and then just starve for another 24, 48 hours without seeming to have any problem whatsoever.
And this actually leads on to one more point, which I think we should make before we jump into your puppy body composition guide. Quite easy to say, actually. I was expecting that one to be a difficult one. So is that every dog is different. And this is really important. Even the same race, same size dog can have a totally different metabolism. Guidelines are exactly that. They're just a guide. We all need to take absolute responsibility for feeding our dog and keep an eye on the body composition of your dog so you can see how they are metabolizing their food. And this is really key, isn't it, Brendan?
Yeah, and there will be that taper period, and we'll talk about the body condition score in a moment, but there'll be that taper period towards the end of that 6 months. So let's take a classic 25 kilo dog. At around 6 months, you'd be expecting them to be reaching their skeletal size and also as an adult, and therefore you'd expect that percentage that you've been feeding will start to taper off. You'll be looking to go from 10% if you've got a really energetic dog, and curving down through 5% probably by 6 months of age, with a view to maybe then coming to the adult maintenance level of 2 to 3% of their body weight. So it's not necessarily just bang, you're going to be on 10% until they're a year old. You do absolutely need to be looking at what your puppy looks like. Has that puppy fat maybe just gone a little bit overboard, and you need to just pare it back a bit?
Yeah, and this is really key. This is super key with feeding your dog in general. We all love a guide and a guideline, but we have to stay, shall we say, alert but relaxed, and know that, for instance, I feed my dog a little bit more in the winter because it's colder. She needs those extra calories to maintain her body temperature. If she's going in the sea's a little bit colder, so that's going to burn up a lot more energy than if it was in the middle of the summer. And a lot of people actually do report that when it comes to hotter periods in the UK, the dog doesn't seem to be as hungry or doesn't want to eat as much. And that's one of the reasons, is they're simply not burning through the calories and don't quite require it. So, Brendan, are you ready to unveil the body condition score?
I feel now that I should have had a prop that I wheel in from the side, but I think it's really easy to just use my own anatomy to display what we're talking about when we're looking at position for checking the fat levels and whether your dog is building up muscle in the right areas. So what I would say, first and foremost, think about the rib cage of your puppy. This will vary a little bit depending again on whether you've got a little bulldog puppy or you've got a skinny little whippet. But generally, if you consider the rib cage of the dog about a third of the way down the rib cage behind the elbow, you should be able to put your fingers in and run backwards and forwards. And I would say the thing to remember, okay, is you can use this great, use your hand and just think, if your dog's ribs feel like you're pushing on the bones of your hand as you run across about this point, okay, then you will feel that that's about the right amount of coverage of fat. Okay. Now, if you clench your fist and you rub your fingers along this part, okay, over the knuckles, then what you'll find is that that's the feeling of the ribs if your dog is too thin. Okay. And then if you turn your hand over and you rub your fingers across the palm of your hand, just where the fingers join your hand, and you feel that that's really just starting to get too fat. Okay. Now, if it's just like a squidgy cushion, okay, then let me tell you, that's puppy fat gone overboard, and you do need to think about paring back a little bit on the diet. Okay. They might look really cute and you might want to just squidge them, but ultimately you need to keep them in a healthy weight. It's not like they're going to be starving for the next week. So please just think sensibly about the level of their diet.
Cool. Now, this is really important because it can have a huge impact on how their skeleton develops and how they actually, and also markers for arthritis in later life. So just being judicious. I mean, I know it's a fine line between having enough reserves of fat in case they get any bouts of diarrhea or sickness or vomiting, and avoiding basically impairing skeletal growth or damaging growth plates or whichever with excess weight. So that's a great guide, Brendan. It's really simple and it's one we can all follow. Back of the hand is ideal. Knuckles is too little. The inside of the hand, where the palm meets the fingers, is too fat.
Yeah, and I think those are great. That's the rib cage pretty much dealt with. Now remember, most dogs, when you stand them side on, they should sweep up from the chest into the groin, okay? They shouldn't just go in a bulbous form or even straight across. They should sweep up for all breeds. Many people say, oh, but my breed's different. Actually, all breeds generally will sweep up. Yes, some degrees, for whippets, it's quite acute. For some, breeds like the bulldogs, it can be a little bit shallower, but generally they should sweep up. And if you also look from above, from the rib cage back to the pelvis, they should also have a bit of a waist too. Okay, so you should see that hourglass shape slightly in that position, and those are two extra little things that you can look at abdominal fat, because although the rib cage gives us a really good idea about superficial fat, we want to also know that there are reserves going to be all over the body, inside the chest, inside the abdomen, inside and around the muscles as well, and those are all reserves. Okay, so you've got to remember, if you're just doing the rib cage and you think, oh, well, that's perfect, but I want a little bit of spare, they've probably got the spare already inside if they're perfect on the rib cage. Okay, that's a really reassuring explanation. That's really good. It allows us all to actually be online, on point, and titrate it accordingly. Brendan,
I think we've covered that more than handsomely.
Brilliant. It's great to be of help.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in another episode soon. Always a pleasure.
Great. Goodbye.